Hey guys, this is a very sad day. Lee Sun-kyun, the legendary actor from Parasite, is no longer with us. He made the final choice reportedly himself. He was found in his car. Also with a charcoal briquette. Think of like one of those big things that used in an old heating system. It's the Korean version of parking your car in the garage and going to sleep. We want to go over the details of what happened, but I also wanted to focus on why this was so unfair to Lee Sun-kyun. Yes, he had his flaws, but it shouldn't be a case where this happened. So let's go over what happened most recently. On December 27th, Wednesday, Korea time, in the morning, 10:30 a.m., Lee Sun-kyun was found in his car, parked along a street in Waryong Park. It's not like a famous, well-attended park. There's a lot of actually parks that are sprinkled throughout Seoul, and so it's not always crowded. It was in northern Seoul. He lives in Cheongdam in Gangnam, so this was kind of far away, but it does have a nice view of Seoul, like a kind of melancholy vista. And from what I've seen, when people make these final choices, especially when I walked across the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco, you see the entire bay in San Francisco, and it's sort of like your last adieu. It really does set up a stage if you kind of have that sort of, feeling. He's a performer, he's an actor. But anyhow, that's where he was found at 10:30 a.m. His wife had called, just minutes before, maybe about 20 minutes before, to the police saying like he was missing. That it looked like he had written some strange note that looks essentially like a will. And the initial reports right away when people, scan the police scanners, they're saying that, he was found unresponsive. And it wasn't very long thereafter, even under an hour, where the police confirmed that he didn't make it. He was pronounced gone before they even... it wasn't a situation where they raced to the hospital. So this happened on Wednesday, Korea time, and on Sunday he had just come back home from, and that's Christmas Eve, right, from a 19-hour investigation by the police. You know how he was wrapped up recently, you can look at the other videos, into this huge scandal involving substances, illicit relations, the seedy nightlife of the high-end hostess bar in Korea, in this case Seoul, in this case in Gangnam, in this case in that Cheongdam-dong, Apgujeong, Nonhyun-dong corridor, which is essentially the primo area for that. Now, the thing that was really creepy about it a little bit, like while I was preparing for this yesterday, I had to take a hot moment because, I was like, I thought there was somebody behind me. I was like, when you feel like, oh yeah, well, I know there's somebody behind me, and then you look, and then I screamed because there was nobody there. I don't know. Maybe. But in any case, it did really prompt me to think that, yes, I should speak for his sense of injustice. Even though I may not agree with how he treated his wife and what he was doing in terms of, selling an image, although that is his job. He's an actor. Like, just because an actor is playing these roles of people that you love and think are like what you think is good, and then their actual life is different, that does, yes, affect their careers. But when you really think about it, it shouldn't. If a Michelin star chef brings beautiful food, but then you see him at home eating McDonald's, like it people are okay with that. But yes, it was not a good situation that he was in, and it looked like he had really crossed a lot of these lines in his personal life, but that's his personal life. And that's for his wife to deal with, and that's for his family to deal with. But where this comes into our life in terms of society, where we're not really judging his situation, but seeing this as an example of why it's dangerous for all of us, is essentially the blackmail component of this drama. In a nutshell, there was a tip-off late summer, I believe. It sounded like August, and then really ramped up in September, where there was a tip-off about illicit substances being circulated among the high-end hostess bars. And if you don't know what a hostess bar is, or a room salon, I got other videos on that. But essentially, in its most innocent sense, it's a place where it's usually underground, and everybody goes into a room. It's not like, standing bar. You don't socialize with randos. You go with people It's usually a bunch of guys, and then there are girls there that can sit with you. Now that is probably the most innocent way of it. And then what does it seem like? It almost seems like a karaoke bar, a karaoke room place where they serve drinks. Then it can escalate up to there, and up until this crisis point with the illicit substances, it had been and it still is, one of these accepted things in Korean society that people don't, definitely the wives do not like, and half the times they don't even know exactly what goes on in there, but they don't like, but it's been accepted. But I think where it's crossing the line is that it now became a distribution point for illicit substances. And yes, there was the Dairy Queen, the person who was involved in the Burning Sun incident, where the clubs were the distribution point then as an epicenter for illicit substances. Then it started to migrate apparently to these high-end places, and where privacy is the utmost. And I was preparing a video on what kind of places are these, and then boom, this happened. So we're going to take a step back and just focus on Lee Sun-kyun, because there is a lot of overlap. For the police, they are investigating, and their primary focus, is that this is a distribution point of illicit substances. This has to be cracked down upon. We have to investigate. And then the people that they did catch were people who were some of the madams of, the people who are working in this one particular place. Now we got the name of it, called A Good Place. Yeah. What was good? So they got the main madam that is involved in this case with Lee Sun-kyun, essentially the madam that Lee Sun-kyun kept hooking up with at this room salon, is in jail, and it seems like she was talking. Now, the reason why this is so unfair is that from the beginning until the end, when he was being asked about his 19-hour questioning over the weekend, just this past weekend, he always led with this blackmail. Like, this is a blackmail case for him. He's been questioned 3 times, including the weekend. But in October, while all this was going down, so really the real stuff hit the fan in September, and then in October it started coming out, the people who are caught were probably talking, because that is their strategy. Once you get caught, you're like, well, I can make a deal with you, let me sing and name some names. And that's how G-Dragon also got wrapped up all into this, is because the workers at the place were starting to rat out their own customers, and that all also really violates that world's version of the bro code. Talking, spilling, and really destroying people's lives. And in this case, yeah, there's no limit to what they're willing to do, even if it results in Lee Sun-kyun apparently taking, the final choice. So the reason why this is so unfair, it seems, is that he was really, really set up. And it looked like he had figured it out by October, because when he was starting to get questioned, he actually filed his own case with the police against two people. One person, we don't know exactly who it is still, and then the other person that had been named is essentially Kim Nam-hee, who is she worked as like a madam and a girl and she probably was the multitasker. What is it? Cross functionality? Yeah, there was cross functioning in that basement over there. And she had been involved, and that had been admitted and proven and released to the public, that at least from 2023, we know that Lee Sun-kyun had really taken his fun to her house. Now that was the whole investigation thing. That's where you can get lost in the weeds, and we can go over that later, like really focusing on their relationship. But usually, if you wanted to extend your relations after the drinking in the place that looks like a karaoke place, a lot of these places, and this one included, that's why I was going to go into the building structure even of this place. It's connected to like a motel, and then it basically end there, and then maybe if you go back to that place, you might, hey, I really liked her, like, is she around? You can spend more time with the same person. However, it is a little bit on a different level when you go then to her house, her actual apartment, and then the accusation that this madam said was that, not only they drank, not only they, lay down in the hay, they was doing substances. Now, and apparently her place also smelled like cat piss because she didn't take care of her cat. So they're just saying like all these fancy people going to some like, hose pad that smells like cat piss. And she said that she and Lee Sun-kyun had done substances 5 times. Now, Lee Sun-kyun says like she's lying. I will even take a lie detector test. Over the weekend, this past weekend, during a 19-hour interrogation, he requested a lie detector test. They didn't give him a lie detector test, and even on his way out saying like, I want a lie detector test because she is lying. And as that happened, he did admit that yes, only one time he did take some substances through a straw and through his nose, but he had been tricked, he said, saying that the madam said it was just like a sleeping aid and it wasn't like a special K. And so that's what he is saying, and then that did not have a good reaction from the public, saying like, okay, that seems like you are really trying to wiggle out of this. Now, he might have been advised by his legal team that is the, just a way to just kind of, bring down some of these charges, sort of admit and just, say that way, and hopefully it blows over. But what also happened over the weekend was that there was the recording, phone recordings that came out between him and this madam. And the phone recording that came out between the madam and his friend. Now we can go into the phone recordings later, I just wanted to go over really the essential parts of it. These phone recordings were from September 17th. That I think was extremely important because it was during that time. It was right before he charged this girl with blackmail. If you listen to the phone recordings, and he charged her in October. So a couple weeks before that, he got a call from her, which was essentially a shakedown for hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's about $300,000. It's 350 million won if you want to be exactly specific. And what ended up happening was that he did give the money to this madam, but she only got 300,000, and she did it through he sent it through his friend. He sent 350 million won, so they were just like, where'd the 50 million won go? So it looks like maybe his friend kind of pocketed an agency fee or something. I don't know. So he became like a suspect. But what this phone recording really showed was that the madam was claiming that, oh my God, I'm being like targeted by hackers. Like first it was hackers, then it was people. Like she's saying like there's some people, she doesn't know who these people are. She can't trace them. She can't even screenshot the messages, that they have evidence that she and he had been spending time at their house. And then towards the end, she basically is saying like, they also know that you did actually, see, this is why it was so manipulative, and I think this is why she was in on it. You can totally tell. Everybody, all the Korean people who've listened to this are saying like, dang, like if he listened to this now, actually, well, he did know, because by October he kind of figured it out. Like this girl was pretending she was being targeted, she was being attacked, and she was just trying to help Lee Sun-kyun and tell him what's going on. These people are threatening to release what they know to the mass public, the mass media. They call it miscom. So that's also a little suspicious. Because she really shouldn't have said it that way, unless her co-conspirator also had access to that world. And a co-conspirator, most likely, it looks like Hwang Hana. Yes, the Dairy Princess. Why would she know? Because her, parents or grandparents' company, they spend a lot of money advertising in mescom. Most people would call that like just to journalists or to news outlets or whatever. Okay, so she basically was saying that they know so much. And you could hear the frustration in Lee Sun-kyun and also the friend. The friend is sort of like on the legal or intelligence side, that he claims, who would know about this, and also a customer. Also seems like they both got with her. And he said, okay, I'm going to call this dude, and then this dude will talk to you as well to try to figure this out, because, we're getting blackmailed. I don't know what to do, so we have to figure this out. But you could hear while they were trying to get the information from this madam about like, how big of a threat is this? Who are these people? What do they know? What are they threatening to do? And what do they want? You can hear that is essentially what they were trying to figure out. Lee Sun-kyun was just trying to figure out, and she's just like pulling like a weave of this. Oh, they know so much in detail. They know exactly when you came in to my place, when you came out. He's like, okay, so yeah, that might be a little bit kind of a scandal-ish, but that's nothing. And then he's like, they don't really have anything in your phone, right? They don't really know what we're going on. And her story kind of kept changing about like, this is when I knew she was lying. And you can tell that Lee Sun-kyun was playing along a bit and trying to figure out, okay, like, is she part of the con or not? And I think by the end of all of this, he figured out that she was a con, although he did pay. This is the thing that was a little bit confusing in the conversation, and I think this is where here's the brain. You could totally tell that like they were switching on from here, extremely sharp, trying to get to the point, and then seeing the truth, and then reminded of like what she did for them somewhere else, and then like even in their tone of voice, is you can totally tell it's just like they're going from like, oh, business, and then they're like, oh yeah, I remember that business, and it's just kind of like going back and forth. And so she was utilizing that, and so in the end of it, I think this is why I think it was tragic, because I think he knew he should not have been so now put down. He should have, you know, in December now, I expected him to kind of be more resolute in taking this person down for blackmailing him like this. I think the part that just really messed up with his head is that he didn't have the public support, and he did do things like, you know, blackmail aside, he's horrible to his wife and just not, you know, crossing these lines. So it was very clear that she was pretending that she was being threatened. And so one of the things she said was like, we'll go into this detail in a different video, but just as express version, phone got hacked a month ago, but they have information. So a month ago back then would have been in August. But then she says like, oh, they have all the information from April. And he's like, wait, your phone was hacked last month. How do they have information from 5 months ago? She's like, oh, no. And he's like, were you hacked twice? Like in April and in August? And she's like, yeah. And then he's like, but what? Then you could tell like he was being suspicious. And then he's like, oh, she's like, oh, no. I mean, the threats started to happen in August, but the hacking was in April. Okay, so that's a hacking. But then she started to say that, oh, and I also think they planted audio bugs in the house because there's like, they say they have audio recordings. So apparently there's like audio recordings. Apparently even some other YouTube news outlet says that there's actually a video, like a, you know, like a Paris Hilton, Kim Kardashian type of video. But the thing that really, it's hands down, she's the liar and manipulator and among a group, was that why do we even have these recordings? She obviously recorded it on her phone. And not only that, when she was talking to the friend, she even said that, oh yeah, well, you know, my phone, since I have an iPhone, I can't record phone calls. But, you know, there are all these apps now, like you can just add on to your iPhone and you can do the recording function. And for her to be recording it and then even saying that she can't record while she's having this kind of a conversation, totally guilty. Then if you look at her word structure, like, because these guys were trying to figure out, you know, when stuff is not adding up, you can hear it in the voices of the two guys. And, you know, she's saying like, oh, I think it got planted. And they're like, planted? Like, who planted it? Like, you know, who's planting? But like, you know, what is this? Like, and what did they get? You know, like, what are they talking about? And she's just like, oh, you know, Hwang Hana. She brought up Hwang Hana in September. And she said, because Hwang Hana also worked there. Okay. Yeah. And I know she wasn't being like mad at me. I doubt she was, you know, being like, you know, she wasn't selling this. I think she was selling things in packages. Like, you know, she was probably the whatever, you know. Well, I mean, you can distribute. I mean, her family business is distributing packets of milk, and she different packets of milk. So she brought her up and said like, oh, you know, and it didn't make sense. This is why I know that it didn't make sense. And this is when people lie. They try to say something true that avoids them saying lies. So basically she said, okay, this is what she said. She said, I have never done any substances with Hwang Han-na. Never, ever, 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 ever. But she came to my house because of some other situation, and I think she's involved. And I had to go to a wedding, and I left the house for about an hour or two, and she was there with some other friend, and I think she didn't say, and I think that's what happened, and I think she is the one that planted it. That's not the thing with Korean manipulation, why it can kind of work well, especially when girls kind of talk like this, and then you're drawn in, you're like, what? And then so that she kind of says it halfway, like I left for a wedding and they were there for an hour. Now, if you replay it back, she can say, I never said Hwang Han-na planted it, but then that's basically like where she's leading you, this whole manipulation. So she's basically pointing the finger at Hwang Han-na. But being able to now not get, busted by Hwang Han-na saying like, why are you putting the blame on me? She's like, I never said that. I just said that like, I had to leave and like you were there. In response to the question of who do you think planted this stuff? So it looks like they were people. Because why did then they give the money that the so-called blackmailers, like these mysterious blackmailers that came from somewhere and just like contacting me and harassing me, I can't sleep. Why did they not send the money directly to the blackmailers? Why did they send the money to this madam? And then that is one of the things that can be traced, unless it was all cash, but they can trace whether she then sent it on to somebody else. And that's probably not in any evidence that she sent it along to somebody else. So it comes very clear that she was lying, made up these imaginary blackmailers, probably with the ring that she had from this place, because of this crackdown. Like, you gotta think about this timeline. Because of this crackdown, like in the late summer, she even said on the phone on September 17th, while she was trying to shake down Lee Sun-kyun for money, that like, it looks like our shop is they call it shop, even though it's like the high-end, room salon that's attached to like, basically like a hoe house. Okay, that's just a fancy hoe house with glitter. And so they're saying like they won't have a business, they won't have an income. These girls basically came out of jail. Now, this is the tragic thing about this. All these fancy people, yes, this was supposed to be like a fancy, 1% bar with, very strict policy. Not anybody can just go to this one. All these filters. And Korean society, and also society anywhere, you have a lot of filters, gatekeepers to try to, make sure you only hang out with the best people, all this kind of stuff, like there's so many gates to go through. So that, if you're in elite society, you're basically only hanging out with elites. However, that all goes out the door once you step into the doors of the good place, okay? And that's where I think these guys were tricked in their mind, and this is the ultimate con, is that they're saying like, okay, this is also a place that has a high filter, and so it must be safe. Yeah, for the customers, like the other customers that are there may have been a high filter, although can you really trust it? But the thing is that who you're sitting next to when, they call out all the girls, you don't know where these girls come from. And now we do know where we know where Hwang Han-na came from, and we know where this Kim Nam-hee came from. They ex-cons in Dior. Sitting next to an ex-con. Can you think about that? Like, people who are so fancy in Korean society, who make sure they would never be sitting at the table with, anybody who probably didn't even go to the right college, and let alone an ex-con, they would never be sitting at the same table. But at the good place, suddenly you forget, because you thought that, like, you know, going into the good place there was a high filter, but then you forget that the actual, when it comes pushing and shoving, well, they've been pushing and shoving, sitting right next to you, an ex-con in Dior, ex-con in Chanel, Gucci, whatever it is, and now you are vulnerable to be taken advantage of because they are colluding together. And I just wanted to kind of bring that up to kind of give context, because people are focusing so much on, wow, well, the phone recording does seem that he really did, you know, imbibe in substances, and he is like a philanderer, and he is kind of, yeah, those are things that should be, you know, like, if you want to judge that, you can judge that, but that really is for him to work out with his family, wife, colleagues, like people who are actually in his life. And I think we're getting sidetracked on purpose, because what this does then is takes us away from the main critical point, that this was a blackmail situation. And who are the blackmails? We should be shining the spotlight on the blackmailers, these ex-cons in Dior. We should really focus on them and what they are doing, more than how maybe Lee Sun-kyun fell into temptation. Because centuries of men falling into temptation, whatever, it's not good, but it's a little bit different when then that fall is manipulated and taken advantage of, and there's like a real ruthless, just don't care about what happens to him or society. I think we really need to shine more of the focus on that, especially when, you know, now we're honoring his legacy, and really need to bring up how unfair the situation is on this level. People can have their debate on whether netizens are being hypocritical about, like, you know, their views on doing things outside the marriage, and their views on substances, their views on, like, you know, this vice industry. You can the debate is too much about the vice industry, vice, but really it's about blackmail. That's the thing that is crazy about this situation, that could have really huge effects. So we'll go into that in a different video. Just wanted to go over the latest news about Lee Sun-kyun and, you know, bring up the point that this is a blackmail thing. This is a tragedy. What do you guys think? Put your comments below. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and give a little prayer to Lee Sun-kyun and all of the happiness and joy that his performances brought to your life, and good thoughts and blessings to his loved ones. All right, guys. See you next time. Bye-bye.